Anna Whitmore stood alone in the spacious living room of the house she and her husband had called home for more than 30 years. The evening had been ordinary in every possible way. A soft summer rain tapped against the windows. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed quietly. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked with slow confidence, marking another peaceful night in suburban Carmel, Indiana. She held her husband's charcoal gray blazer in her hands. Nothing unusual. Every Thursday she checked the pockets before sending his work clothes to the dry cleaner. It had become a habit decades ago. One of those little rituals couples develop without ever talking about them. Her fingers slipped inside the inner pocket. She expected receipts. Maybe reading glasses. Instead, her fingertips touched two thick pieces of paper. Anna slowly pulled them out. Train tickets. Indianapolis Union Station to Chicago. Departure. 7:10 a.m. tomorrow morning. She frowned. Then she looked closer. Passenger 1, Daniel Whitmore. Passenger 2, Lauren Mitchell. Anna's breathing stopped for just a second. Lauren. Her younger sister. For several long moments she simply stared at the tickets. No panic. No scream. No tears. Only silence. She lowered herself carefully onto the edge of the sofa, as though the room had suddenly become unsteady beneath her feet. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Then she heard Daniel's voice. The sliding door to the patio had been left slightly open. Yes, Lauren. I have everything. His voice was low, careful. We leave first thing in the morning. A pause. No. She doesn't know. Another pause. And she can't find out yet. Anna closed her eyes. Every word landed like another stone placed carefully on her chest. I'll handle everything myself. I promise. She slowly inhaled. At 61 years old, Anna Whitmore had learned something that life rarely teaches gently. People survive storms not because they never break, but because they know when not to. She had never been the woman who threw dishes. She had never searched through phones. She had never created dramatic scenes. Even now, her heart was racing so violently she could hear it in her ears. But her face remained calm. She stood. Walked to the large mirror above the fireplace. Straightened the collar of her silk blouse. Looked directly into her own reflection. The woman staring back looked composed. Strong. Elegant. Exactly the woman everyone believed she was. The patio door slid open. Daniel walked inside, slipping his phone into his pocket. He smiled automatically. Then he saw the tickets lying on the glass coffee table. His smile disappeared instantly. For a brief second, she saw fear. Real fear. Not guilt. Fear. I was getting your jacket ready for the cleaners, Anna said quietly. Her voice sounded almost too calm. But I guess you'll need it tomorrow. Daniel froze. Neither of them moved. Finally he stepped toward her. Anna. Please. This isn't what you think. She looked directly into his eyes. What do I think, Daniel? I found 2 train tickets. I heard your phone call. I heard you telling my sister that I mustn't know. So why don't you tell me exactly what I'm supposed to think? He rubbed both hands across his face. I can't explain everything tonight. Give me 2 days. I'll come back. I'll explain every single thing. I swear. She almost laughed. Almost. You'll come back. She repeated the word slowly, as if leaving with my sister requires a return appointment. No. He took another step. It isn't like that. It concerns your father. The word stopped her for half a heartbeat. My father. Yes. I can't. She raised one hand. No. Her voice became colder. My overnight bag is still in the hall closet. Yours is on the top shelf. You can pack your own things. I want you out of this house within 15 minutes. Daniel stared at her. His shoulders dropped. Anna. Please. You're making a terrible mistake. The mistake, she answered softly, was believing 32 years meant something neither of us could destroy. He swallowed. I never wanted to hurt you. No. Her eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. First my sister convinced Dad that I wanted to steal his house. Now I discover you're secretly traveling with her. I suppose the two of you make an excellent team. For several seconds Daniel didn't speak. He looked exhausted. Far older than he had that morning. As though he had been carrying something impossibly heavy. Finally, he nodded once. Without another argument. Without defending himself. Without accusing her. He simply turned toward the bedroom. Anna stood perfectly still. She listened to dresser drawers opening. Closet doors sliding. A zipper closing. 10 minutes later he walked back through the living room carrying only one travel bag. He placed his house keys on the entry table. Looked at her one last time. His lips moved. I'm sorry. Then the front door closed. The lock clicked. Silence returned. Only after several minutes did Anna allow herself to breathe. Her legs suddenly felt weak. She sat heavily in the armchair. The trembling she'd been fighting finally reached her hands. She reached for Daniel's forgotten blazer, intending to shove it into a closet where she wouldn't have to look at it again. As she lifted it, something slipped from one of the side pockets. A folded document, thicker than ordinary paper. She frowned, slowly unfolded it. Her heartbeat accelerated. It wasn't another ticket. It was an official document from a law office in Indianapolis. At the bottom, she recognized her father's signature. Or, at least something that was supposed to be his signature. Her father, Harold Mitchell, had spent 40 years as an architect. His handwriting had always been precise, confident, perfectly straight. But the signature on this document looked nothing like the man who had taught her to draw perfectly measured lines as a little girl. The letters shook, collapsed, almost as if someone had struggled just to hold the pen. Anna felt a chill spread through the room. She lowered herself back into the chair and began reading. By the time she reached the second paragraph, the color drained from her face. This wasn't a will. It wasn't a deed. It was a legal power of attorney. And according to the document, control over her father's property wasn't being transferred to Lauren. It was being transferred to a man Anna had never heard of before. A complete stranger. She stared again at the trembling signature. Something was terribly wrong. And for the first time that night, she realized the train tickets might not have been the biggest secret Daniel had been hiding. The rain continued long after Daniel had driven away. Anna never turned on the television. She didn't call anyone. She simply sat in the dim living room with the legal document resting on her lap, reading the same paragraph over and over until the words began to blur together. Power of attorney. Principal Harold Mitchell. Authorized representative, Thomas Keller. She whispered the unfamiliar name. Thomas Keller. Nothing. No memory. No family friend. No attorney her father had ever mentioned. Just a complete stranger who, according to this document, now had authority over every financial decision concerning Harold Mitchell's property. Anna picked up her phone and searched the name. Hundreds of results appeared. Construction companies, insurance agents, real estate brokers. None seemed connected. Then something caught her attention. A local business registration. Keller Property Investments. Based in Indianapolis. Specialized in purchasing inherited farmland and older residential estates. Her stomach tightened. Her father's farmhouse sat on nearly 20 acres outside Bloomington, Indiana. Land developers had been trying to buy that property for years. Her father had refused every offer. He always said the same thing. Your grandfather planted every maple tree with his own hands. Some things aren't for sale. So why would he suddenly sign away authority to a stranger? Anna looked again at the signature. It looked less like consent, and more like surrender. She glanced toward the front door. Daniel had tried to say something. He'd mentioned her father. She hadn't let him finish. The memory hit harder than she expected. She had looked directly into the eyes of the man she'd trusted for 3 decades, and never once asked why. She simply assumed the worst. She stood abruptly. No, there had to be answers. She grabbed her car keys, then stopped. On the back of the legal document something caught her eye. Tiny pencil marks. Almost invisible. A phone number. Below it, one handwritten word. Neurology. Anna frowned. She typed the number into her phone. Within seconds, a search result appeared. Midwest Neurological Rehabilitation Center. Located just outside Indianapolis. Open 24 hours. Anna stared at the screen. Why would a rehabilitation center's phone number be written on the back of a legal document? She didn't hesitate any longer. 20 minutes later she was driving south on Interstate 69. The windshield wipers moved rhythmically across the glass. The interstate was almost empty. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement like endless golden ribbons. For the first time all evening, she wasn't thinking about Daniel. She was thinking about her father. 3 months earlier everything between them had changed. Until then they had spoken every week. Sunday afternoon phone calls. Birthday dinners. Family barbecues. Simple traditions. Then Lauren moved back into Harold's farmhouse. At first Anna had actually been relieved. Her younger sister had recently lost her boutique gift shop in downtown Bloomington after struggling financially for nearly a year. She needed somewhere to stay. Their father hated living alone. Seemed like the perfect solution. Anna had even emptied nearly every dollar from the savings account she and Daniel had built over the previous decade. Money they planned to use for retirement. For a small lake cabin somewhere in northern Indiana. And said, she handed Lauren a cashier's check. You'll get back on your feet, Anna had told her. We're family. Lauren cried. Promised she'd repay every cent. Called Anna the best sister in the world. Looking back now, those tears felt rehearsed. Within weeks everything changed. Harold answered fewer calls. When Anna phoned, Lauren usually answered instead. Dad's sleeping. He's tired. The doctor wants him resting. Always another excuse. Then came that awful Saturday afternoon. Anna baked Harold's favorite apple pie, loaded groceries into her SUV, and drove to the farmhouse without calling first. She still remembered every detail. The gravel driveway, the old red barn, the giant oak tree where she played as a child. Everything looked exactly the same, except her father. When Harold opened the front door, Anna barely recognized him. He leaned heavily on a wooden cane. His shoulders seemed smaller, his face pale. He didn't smile, didn't hug her, didn't even invite her inside. What do you want? His voice had sounded cold, almost suspicious. I brought groceries. And pie. She smiled uncertainly. You always loved. I don't want anything from you. The word struck harder than any slap. Dad. I know what you've been planning. His grip tightened around the cane. Lauren told me everything. Anna blinked. Everything. What? You've been meeting with real estate agents. You want to put me in assisted living. So you can sell this place. She stared at him in disbelief. What? I never. Don't lie to me. His voice shook with anger. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. Anna couldn't speak. Behind him, standing quietly in the hallway, Lauren watched everything. She never corrected him, never denied a single accusation. She simply stood there, silent, watching her older sister be thrown out of the house. Anna left without arguing. She knew stress could send her father's blood pressure soaring. She told herself he'd calm down in a few days. He never did. A week later, he stopped answering her calls. 2 weeks later, the locks on the property had been changed. Now, 3 months later, she was driving toward a neurological rehabilitation center in the middle of the night because she'd found a mysterious phone number hidden behind a legal document. None of it made sense. The GPS announced her turn. A few minutes later she pulled into the parking lot of a modern medical facility surrounded by tall pine trees. Soft lights glowed through enormous windows. Everything looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Anna hurried inside. The lobby smelled faintly of disinfectant and fresh coffee. A middle-aged receptionist looked up from her computer. Can I help you? Anna took a steady breath. I'm looking for my father. Harold Mitchell. The receptionist typed for several seconds, then paused. She looked carefully at Anna. Are you Anna Whitmore? Anna's heartbeat skipped. Yes. The woman smiled gently. I've been hoping you'd come. Anna frowned. You were expecting me? The receptionist nodded. Your husband left your contact information. Anna froze. My husband. Daniel Whitmore. He said if anything happened and we couldn't reach him, we should call you immediately. Anna's world tilted. Daniel? Here. Why? The receptionist continued. I'm sorry, but you're just a few hours too late. Anna felt her throat tighten. What do you mean? Mr. Whitmore checked your father out this evening. He transferred him to another facility. Anna's eyes widened. My husband took my father? Yes. He said it wasn't safe for him to stay here anymore. Anna stared silently at the woman. Nothing about tonight resembled the story she'd imagined only an hour earlier. And deep inside, for the first time, she began to wonder whether she'd sent the wrong person away. Anna gripped the edge of the reception desk so tightly that her knuckles turned white. I'm sorry, she whispered. Could you start from the beginning? The receptionist nodded. Mr. Whitmore admitted your father 10 days ago. Anna stared at her. 10 days. Yes, ma'am. He arrived here severely dehydrated. His blood pressure was dangerously high, and he'd suffered what doctors believe was a minor stroke. He was also showing signs of exhaustion and prolonged neglect. The room suddenly felt much colder. Anna could barely force the words out. Neglect. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. Your father was found alone. He had apparently fallen inside his home and had been unable to reach a phone for several hours. Anna's heart pounded. No. The woman nodded slowly. Your husband told us he became worried after your father stopped answering his calls. He drove to the farmhouse and found him lying in the hallway. Anna closed her eyes. Images flashed through her mind. Harold struggling to stand. The lonely farmhouse. The cane. The anger in his eyes. How long had he been suffering? And where had Lauren been? The receptionist continued quietly. Your husband carried him to his truck himself. He refused to wait for an ambulance because he thought every minute mattered. He stayed here almost every evening after work. Anna looked up. Every evening? Yes. He usually arrived around 7. He'd sit with your father until visiting hours ended. He brought him books, fresh clothes, your father's favorite peppermint candies. He even convinced him to start physical therapy when he wanted to give up. Anna couldn't speak. The woman smiled faintly. The nurses kept saying your father became stronger whenever Daniel was here. Anna felt something inside her crack. Only an hour earlier, she had accused that same man of betraying her. She remembered the expression on his face when she ordered him to leave. It hadn't been guilt. It had been heartbreak. Why? Anna finally managed. Why didn't Daniel tell me? The receptionist hesitated. He specifically asked us not to. He said your relationship with your father had become very complicated. He didn't want you seeing him in such fragile condition. He kept saying. She searched her memory. Anna has already been through enough. Those words hit harder than anything else that night. Daniel had been protecting her, not deceiving her. Anna slowly reached into her coat pocket and unfolded the power of attorney. Have you ever seen this? The receptionist immediately recognized it. Her expression changed. Oh, so that's the document. You know about it? Unfortunately. She sighed deeply. 3 days ago your sister came here. Anna's pulse quickened. Lauren. She wasn't alone. There was another man with her. A man in an expensive suit. Anna remembered the name. Thomas Keller. They insisted on seeing your father. At first we refused because he was still recovering. But your sister claimed they had urgent family business. The receptionist folded her hands together. Mr. Mitchell was still heavily medicated. He wasn't thinking clearly. Your sister cried. She held his hand. She kept telling him she'd lose everything if he didn't sign immediately. Anna felt sick. And then, they placed several documents in front of him. He could barely keep his eyes open. But he signed. The receptionist looked genuinely upset. We realized something wasn't right. Before we could stop them, they'd already left. Anna's hands trembled. What happened after Daniel found out? The receptionist gave a tired smile. I've honestly never seen someone so angry. He came straight here after work. He demanded copies of every security recording. He contacted your father's attorney. He called Adult Protective Services. He even spoke with the county sheriff. Anna blinked. He did all that? He said no one was going to steal your father or his property while he was still breathing. Tears finally filled Anna's eyes. He also said something else. What? The receptionist smiled. My wife already lost her relationship with her father because of lies. I'm not letting her lose her family home too. Anna covered her mouth. For 32 years Daniel had quietly solved problems before she ever knew they existed. And tonight, she had thrown him out. The silence between them at the front door replayed inside her head. I'm sorry. Those had been his final words. Not accusations. Not excuses. Just, I'm sorry. The receptionist interrupted her thoughts. Before your husband left tonight, he arranged another transfer. Why? Someone had been asking questions about your father's room. Visitors. They claimed to be family. But they couldn't explain why they wanted to know his schedule. Anna immediately thought of Lauren. Daniel must have realized her sister wasn't acting alone. He believed your father wasn't safe here anymore. So he moved him. Where? I'm afraid I can't disclose the location without his permission. Anna nodded. Of course. HIPAA regulations. She understood. So, she needed to find Daniel. Immediately, she pulled out her phone. Dialed his number. 1 ring. 2. 3. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. A knot formed in her stomach. What if something happened? The receptionist frowned. He left about 3 hours ago. He seemed worried. Worried. He kept checking the parking lot. As if he thought someone might be following him. Anna's heart skipped. Following him? Suddenly, nothing about this felt like a family misunderstanding anymore. It felt dangerous. She thanked the receptionist and hurried outside. The rain had finally stopped. Mist drifted over the empty parking lot. She climbed into her SUV but didn't start the engine immediately. Instead, she stared through the windshield. If Daniel had taken Harold somewhere safe, where would he go? Then she remembered something. Years ago, whenever life became overwhelming, Daniel always drove to the farmhouse first. Not because he loved the place, because Harold did. If Daniel believed Lauren was trying to steal the property, there was one place she would almost certainly return. The farmhouse. Anna started the engine. 45 minutes later, she turned onto the familiar gravel road leading toward her childhood home. The house stood in complete darkness. Almost. A faint yellow light glowed through the kitchen window. Someone was inside. Anna switched off her headlights several hundred feet away. She stepped quietly from the SUV. The damp night air smelled of wet grass and pine. The front gate stood slightly open. That had never happened before. She moved silently toward the porch. The front door wasn't locked. Voices drifted from the kitchen. One belonged to Lauren. The other was a man's voice. Deep, calm, completely unfamiliar. Anna froze just outside the doorway. Then she heard him say something that made every hair on the back of her neck stand up. You promised me. The old man had already signed everything. Anna remained perfectly still. The kitchen door was open just enough for her to see shadows moving across the worn hardwood floor. She carefully stepped closer, keeping herself hidden by the hallway wall. The unfamiliar man stood with his back to her. He was tall, wearing a tailored navy jacket despite the late hour. His expensive leather shoes looked strangely out of place inside her father's old farmhouse. Lauren sat at the kitchen table. She looked exhausted. Her makeup had run, her hair was a mess, and dark circles surrounded her eyes. Gone was the confident younger sister who had always seemed to land on her feet. Now she looked terrified. You told me, the man repeated calmly, that Harold Mitchell had signed every document. I thought he had. Lauren's voice trembled. He signed the power of attorney. That's not enough anymore. The man tossed a folder onto the table. The attorney your brother-in-law hired has already filed paperwork challenging it. Anna's heart skipped. Daniel. Even after she'd thrown him out. He had already started fighting to protect her father. Lauren buried her face in her hands. I didn't know he'd move this fast. You underestimated him. I told you from the beginning your sister's husband wasn't someone to play games with. The man leaned across the table. Now listen carefully. If I lose this deal, you owe me every dollar I've advanced. Lauren looked up, panic spreading across her face. I don't have that kind of money. You should have thought about that before taking it. Silence filled the kitchen. Then Lauren whispered the words that made Anna's stomach turn. I already spent it. The man nodded slowly. I know. I invested everything. Lauren's voice cracked. The new business. The online furniture company. My partner disappeared. He took everything. The man wasn't interested. That's your problem. I only care about my investment. He opened another folder. There are two options. You either produce the original property documents by Friday, or ownership of your condominium transfers to me. Lauren's face lost what little color remained. You can't do that. I absolutely can. You signed the agreement. Anna finally understood. Lauren hadn't just lied to their father. She had borrowed money from dangerous people, using the family property as collateral. The stranger glanced impatiently around the kitchen. So, where are the original deeds? Lauren shook her head. I've searched everywhere. He always kept important papers somewhere in this house. Then keep looking. I don't leave empty-handed. The stranger began opening drawers without asking permission. Family photographs, old letters, tax records. Everything was tossed carelessly onto the table. Anna's chest tightened. She watched as decades of family memories were treated like worthless junk. A carved wooden keepsake box lay upside down, its contents scattered across the table. Black and white photographs. Her mother's handwritten recipes. Birthday cards. Military medals that had belonged to their grandfather. The stranger pushed them aside without a second glance. Anna couldn't stay hidden any longer. She stepped into the kitchen. They're not here. Both of them spun around. Lauren gasped. Anna. The stranger narrowed his eyes. And who are you? Anna stood straighter than she had all evening. My name is Anna Whitmore. I'm Harold Mitchell's oldest daughter. And you're trespassing. The man smiled. Actually, your sister invited me. Anna ignored him. My father is under medical care. Any document signed while he was medically impaired is already being challenged. The man's smile faded slightly. My attorney has copies. So does the county. And if you're involved in obtaining signatures from a vulnerable adult. She took one calm step forward. I'd be very careful about what you touch in this house. The stranger studied her. He expected panic. Instead he found composure. Confidence. The kind that couldn't be faked. After several long seconds, he slowly closed his folder. He looked toward Lauren. You've created a much bigger problem than you promised. I'll contact you tomorrow. If you don't have a solution by Friday, you already know what happens. Without another word, he walked past Anna and disappeared into the hallway. A moment later, the front door slammed. Silence settled over the farmhouse. Only the ticking of the old kitchen clock remained. Lauren didn't look at her sister. She simply stared at the scattered family photographs. Anna slowly walked to the table. She picked up one of the old pictures. Their mother stood in a flower garden, laughing while holding 6-year-old Lauren in her arms. Anna gently brushed dust from the photograph, then placed it back inside the wooden box. Finally, she looked at her sister. How much? Lauren didn't answer. How much do you owe? Barely above a whisper. $420,000. Anna stared at her. $420,000? Lauren nodded. The first business failed. I borrowed more to recover. The second one failed too. I kept thinking one more investment would fix everything. Anna closed her eyes. Years earlier, she had emptied her retirement savings because Lauren promised she only needed one chance. One chance had become another. And another. Until there was nothing left but lies. I gave you everything Daniel and I had. Anna's voice remained calm. We postponed retirement. We gave up the cabin we dreamed about. We trusted you. Lauren finally looked at her. Tears streamed down her face. It wasn't enough. Anna felt something inside her quietly break. Not anger. Not hatred. Just the realization that the sister she'd spent a lifetime protecting no longer existed. Instead, a stranger sat across from her. A stranger willing to sacrifice everyone else to escape the consequences of her own decisions. Then Lauren spoke again. You still don't understand. What don't I understand? Lauren laughed bitterly. You think Daniel's some kind of hero. Anna frowned. He saved Dad. Did he? Lauren leaned forward. Then ask yourself one question. Anna's heartbeat slowed. What question? Lauren's eyes locked onto hers. If Daniel is so honest, why did Dad sign another legal document this morning? Anna froze. What are you talking about? Lauren smiled through her tears. Oh. So he didn't tell you that part. Anna felt the room grow strangely quiet. What document? Lauren's smile widened just enough to make Anna uncomfortable. The one your perfect husband made sure nobody else got to see. Before Anna could respond, headlights swept across the kitchen window. A vehicle stopped outside. Both sisters turned toward the sound. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps climbed the porch steps. Then a familiar voice echoed through the hallway. Anna. It was Daniel. And for the first time that night, Anna realized she no longer knew which version of the truth she was about to hear. Daniel stepped into the kitchen, brushing rainwater from his jacket. He stopped the moment he saw Anna. For a brief second, relief crossed his face. Then he noticed Lauren standing beside the table. Scattered documents. Family photographs. Open drawers. His expression hardened immediately. What happened? His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Neither woman answered. Daniel slowly walked farther into the room. His eyes landed on the empty coffee mug sitting near Lauren. Then on the muddy footprints leading toward the back door. They were here. It wasn't a question. Lauren looked away. They already left. Daniel nodded once. I was afraid of that. He reached into his coat pocket and removed a thick blue folder. He set it carefully on the kitchen table. I came to get these before someone else did. Anna looked at him. For the first time that evening. She didn't interrupt him. She simply waited. Daniel noticed. His shoulders relaxed ever so slightly. I know you've got questions. You deserve answers. He glanced at Lauren. But not with an audience that helped create this mess. Lauren folded her arms. Oh please. You've been lying to her all week. Daniel looked directly at her. No. I was protecting someone. There's a difference. Lauren laughed bitterly. That's convenient. Daniel ignored the remark. Instead he turned toward Anna. Your father is safe. He's resting. The doctors finally stabilized his blood pressure. Anna felt tears gathering again. Where is he? I'll take you there. But first. He opened the blue folder. Inside were copies of medical records, emergency admission forms, doctor's notes, photographs. Anna picked up the first picture. Her breath caught. Her father. Lying in a hospital bed. Bruises covered one side of his face. An oxygen tube rested beneath his nose. The date in the corner shocked her. 10 days earlier. The very same evening Lauren had told her over the phone. Dad's feeling much better. Anna slowly lowered the photograph. Daniel spoke quietly. This is how I found him. He'd been lying on the hallway floor. The heating wasn't working. There was almost no food left in the refrigerator. He hadn't taken his medication in at least 2 days. Anna looked at Lauren. Her sister couldn't meet her eyes. I had to leave for 1 day, Lauren whispered. I came back. Daniel interrupted. You left for 36 hours. I checked the security cameras from the gas station down the road. You drove to Indianapolis. You never came back until after Harold was already in the hospital. Lauren's face turned pale. You spied on me? I investigated. There's a difference. Silence filled the room. Daniel continued. The sheriff has the footage. Anna slowly sat down. Every new piece of information made her chest feel heavier. Everything she'd believed, everything Lauren had told her, was collapsing. Daniel pulled another document from the folder. This is the neurologist's report. Anna looked down. The diagnosis confirmed a transient ischemic attack. A warning stroke. One that could easily have become fatal without immediate treatment. The doctor's note mentioned severe dehydration, malnutrition, extreme stress. Anna covered her mouth. My God. Daniel sat across from her. I wanted to tell you. I tried. But every time I picked up the phone. He hesitated. I imagined you rushing to the hospital. I imagined you seeing your father unable to recognize where he was. I imagined another argument. The doctors warned me another emotional shock could trigger a major stroke. Anna remembered his words from earlier. Give me 2 days. He hadn't been hiding an affair. He'd been buying time. Time to save her father. Time to protect her. Time to fix everything before she had to carry the burden herself. She felt ashamed. Deeply ashamed. I'm sorry. The words escaped before she realized she was speaking. Daniel smiled sadly. You don't owe me an apology. Yes. I do. She looked directly into his eyes. I never even gave you the chance to explain. Daniel gently shook his head. If our positions had been reversed, I probably would have thought the same thing. Lauren suddenly slammed both hands onto the table. Can both of you stop pretending you're perfect? Neither of them answered. Lauren's breathing became uneven. You've always done this. Always. Anna frowned. What are you talking about? You two save everyone. Lauren laughed bitterly. Everyone loves Daniel. Everyone admires Anna. The perfect couple. The responsible daughter. The successful family. And what was I? She pointed toward herself. The disappointment. No one ever called you that, Anna replied softly. I didn't have to hear it. Lauren's voice cracked. I saw it. When Dad looked at you. When Mom talked about you. When neighbors asked how Anna and Daniel were doing. I was always second. Anna stared at her sister. I never wanted that. I know. Lauren nodded. That's what made it worse. You weren't trying. You were just better. Daniel remained silent. He understood this wasn't really about money anymore. It hadn't been for years. Lauren wiped her eyes. I wanted one thing. Just one thing I could accomplish without anyone helping me. So I borrowed. Then I borrowed more. I thought one successful deal would change everything. And when it didn't. She looked toward the empty chair where the stranger had been sitting. I panicked. Anna finally understood. The money. The forged documents. The manipulation. None of it had started with greed. It had started with pride. And pride had slowly become desperation. But desperation didn't excuse betrayal. It only explained it. Daniel quietly closed the folder. There is still one thing you don't know. Anna looked at him. What? He reached into the folder again. This time, he removed a sealed envelope. Across the front, written in Harold Mitchell's unmistakable handwriting, were 5 simple words. For Anna, open together with Daniel. Anna frowned. Dad wrote this. Daniel nodded. This morning. Right before we left the rehabilitation center. She looked at the envelope. Then back at Daniel. Why didn't you give it to me earlier? Because I wanted your father to tell you himself. Anna carefully broke the seal. Inside, there was another legal document. And a handwritten letter. She unfolded the letter first. As her eyes moved across the first few lines, the color slowly disappeared from her face. She looked up at Daniel. What? Her voice barely existed anymore. This can't be right. Daniel didn't answer. He simply waited. Because he already knew exactly what Harold had confessed inside that letter. Anna stared at the first line of the letter until the words stopped looking like words. They became shapes. Blurred ink. Impossible sentences. Her father had written every line himself. The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakably his. My dearest Anna, if you're reading this, then Daniel has finally decided it was time for you to know the truth. I asked him to keep it from you, not because I didn't trust you, but because I was ashamed of myself. A tear landed on the page. Anna wiped it away before the ink could run. She continued reading. Everything that happened between us was my fault. Lauren lied to me, yes. But I chose to believe those lies because I was afraid. Old age is a strange thing. You begin wondering whether the people you love are helping you because they care, or because they're waiting for you to leave this world. Anna closed her eyes. She remembered every phone call that had gone unanswered, every birthday card returned unopened, every lonely holiday spent pretending she wasn't heartbroken, all because fear had found its way into her father's mind. She continued. Lauren told me you had spoken to real estate agents. She showed me printed listings for retirement communities. She convinced me you and Daniel wanted me somewhere easier to manage, so the farm could be sold. I never asked you if it was true. That is my greatest shame. Anna whispered. No, Dad. Daniel quietly placed a hand over hers. She didn't pull away this time. Instead, she held onto his fingers. The letter continued. The truth is, the retirement communities were my idea. Anna frowned. She looked at Daniel. He nodded. Keep reading. 6 months ago, I secretly visited 3 retirement communities. My health had already started getting worse. I didn't want either of my daughters giving up their lives to care for me. I even asked Daniel to drive me to 2 of them because I was embarrassed to tell you. Anna looked up sharply. You knew. Daniel nodded slowly. Your father swore me to secrecy. He wanted to surprise you after he'd made his decision. Anna felt another piece of the puzzle fall into place. Lauren had twisted the truth. She hadn't invented the retirement homes. She'd simply changed who wanted them. The letter continued. Daniel begged me to tell you everything. I refused. I thought I was protecting your feelings. Instead, I destroyed your trust. Anna could barely breathe. For months, she had believed her father hated her. All because neither man had wanted to hurt her. The irony was almost unbearable. She turned the page. The next paragraph changed everything. There is one more truth you deserve to know. 3 years ago, after your mother passed away, I rewrote my will. Anna stopped. She looked at Daniel again. You knew about this too? No. This is the first time I've seen the letter. She continued reading. I originally divided everything equally between you and Lauren. That seemed fair. Then I watched what happened. You quietly helped everyone around you without asking for recognition. Lauren slowly became consumed by comparing her life to yours. I hoped she would find her own happiness. Instead, she began believing your success somehow stole hers. Anna felt tears running freely now. The words hurt because they were true. Not cruel. Just true. If you are reading this letter, then she has probably crossed a line from which there is no easy return. Anna's heartbeat quickened. She unfolded the second document. The legal document. A certified copy of Harold Mitchell's revised estate plan. The farmhouse. The land. Every acre. Everything. Transferred solely to Anna upon his passing. There was one additional page attached. A handwritten statement. This decision is not punishment. It is protection. Land can always be inherited. Character cannot. Anna covered her mouth. She couldn't stop crying anymore. Across the kitchen, Lauren had gone completely still. She hadn't spoken since Anna opened the envelope. Now, she finally whispered. He really changed it. Nobody answered. Lauren slowly shook her head. No. He promised. Her voice faded. Anna looked up. Promised what? Lauren stared at the floor. He promised that he'd forgive me. Silence. Finally Daniel spoke. He already has. Lauren looked at him. What? Harold asked me not to file criminal charges. Anna turned toward Daniel. You never told me that. He insisted. Daniel sighed. He said losing his younger daughter forever would hurt more than losing the farm. Lauren burst into tears. Real tears. Not the carefully practiced crying Anna had seen months earlier. These came from somewhere much deeper. I never wanted this. She sobbed. I only wanted. She couldn't finish. Daniel spoke quietly. You wanted to stop feeling like you were living in someone else's shadow. Lauren nodded. Again and again. Anna watched her younger sister crumble. For the first time in months, she wasn't seeing a manipulator. She wasn't seeing an enemy. She was seeing a broken woman whose terrible choices had finally caught up with her. That didn't erase what she'd done. It didn't undo the lies. Or the betrayal. But it explained the emptiness behind her eyes. Before anyone could speak again, Daniel's phone rang. He looked at the screen. His expression changed instantly. What is it? Anna asked. He answered without taking his eyes off the phone. It's the security company. The security company? They've been monitoring your father's farmhouse since tonight. Anna felt her stomach tighten. Daniel answered the call. He listened silently. His face grew paler with every passing second. Finally, he said only 3 words. We're coming now. He ended the call. Anna stood immediately. What happened? Daniel looked toward the front window. Someone had broken into the barn. And according to the security cameras, they weren't looking for money. They were searching for something hidden. Something they believed Harold Mitchell had kept on the property. Something important enough to risk coming back in the middle of the night. Daniel was already halfway to the front door before Anna grabbed her coat. "What exactly did they say?" she asked, struggling to keep up. He unlocked his pickup with the remote. The motion sensors behind the barn were triggered. They checked the cameras. "There are at least 2 people. They're carrying flashlights." Anna's pulse quickened. "The police. They're on the way." Daniel opened the passenger door for her. But the farmhouse is almost 30 minutes outside the county sheriff's nearest patrol zone. They may not get there in time. Lauren hurried onto the porch. "I'm coming." Daniel looked at her. "No. I know what they're looking for." He hesitated. "So do I." Anna turned sharply. "What do you mean?" Lauren lowered her eyes. "I told Thomas Keller about something Dad used to say." "What?" "When we were kids. He always joked that if the bank ever collapsed, everything that really mattered was buried where only family could find it." Daniel frowned. "I remember him saying that too." Anna blinked. "I thought he was kidding." "So did I," Lauren whispered. But Keller believed him. Daniel climbed behind the wheel. "If they're tearing apart the barn, they're looking for whatever Harold supposedly hid." The truck sped down the wet county road. Neither Anna nor Lauren spoke. Headlights cut through patches of fog drifting over the fields. Every mile seemed longer than the last. Anna stared out the window. Her childhood memories rushed back. Summer evenings feeding horses, helping her father repair fences, her mother hanging quilts outside to dry. The old red barn had always been the heart of the property. If strangers were destroying it, it felt personal. After 25 minutes, Daniel slowed the truck. He switched off the headlights. The farmhouse sat nearly 300 yards ahead. Only moonlight illuminated the property, but flashes of light danced inside the barn. "Flashlights. They're still here," Daniel whispered. Anna could hear metal scraping against wood. Someone was moving heavy equipment. Daniel reached beneath his seat. Anna looked over. "What are you doing?" He pulled out a powerful flashlight. "Nothing else. No weapon. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm buying time until the deputies arrive." Lauren suddenly pointed toward the field. There. A black SUV sat hidden behind a line of trees. Its engine was still running. Daniel recognized it immediately. "Thomas Keller." "How do you know?" "I copied the plate number after he visited the rehabilitation center." Anna stared. "You've been tracking him?" "I've been trying to stay one step ahead." Daniel looked at both sisters. "I need you to stay here." Anna immediately shook her head. "Not happening." "Anna." "No. I've spent 3 months being left out of the truth. I'm done waiting in cars." Daniel looked at her for several seconds. Finally, he nodded. "Stay behind me." The 3 of them quietly crossed the yard. The barn door stood partially open. Inside, wood splintered. Someone cursed. Another flashlight beam swept across old farming equipment. Anna peeked through the opening. 2 men were pulling loose floorboards from the center of the barn. Thomas Keller stood nearby giving orders. "Keep digging. It has to be here." One of the men wiped sweat from his forehead. "We've already searched half the place." Keller slammed his boot against one of the boards. "The old man hid something." "I know it." Daniel stepped into the doorway. "I think you're finished." Every head turned. Thomas Keller smiled. "I was wondering when you'd show up. You broke into private property." Daniel's voice remained steady. "The sheriff's department already knows you're here." Keller laughed. "By the time they arrive, we'll be long gone." Anna noticed something strange. Keller wasn't nervous. He acted like someone who still believed he was winning. Then Keller looked directly at Lauren. "You lied to me." Lauren swallowed hard. "I told you everything I knew." "No. You held something back." He pointed toward the center of the barn. "Tell me where your father hid it." "I don't know." His smile disappeared. "You owe me nearly $500,000. I'm done asking nicely." For the first time, Anna saw genuine fear in Lauren's face. Daniel stepped forward. "Leave her alone." Keller chuckled. "You're a good husband. A good son-in-law. A good citizen." Then his expression turned cold. "But you're protecting the wrong people." "What does that mean?" Daniel asked. Keller slowly reached into his coat. Anna's heart stopped. He didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out an old black and white photograph. He held it up. Anna immediately recognized it. It had been taken almost 40 years earlier. Her parents, both sisters, standing in front of the barn. Everyone smiling. "What about it?" Anna asked. Keller looked directly at her. Your father wasn't hiding money. He wasn't hiding jewelry. He was hiding something worth far more. Anna frowned. What are you talking about? Keller turned the photograph over. On the back, there was a faded hand-drawn map. A map that none of them had ever seen before. And in one corner, written in Harold Mitchell's handwriting, were 6 words that made Daniel's face lose all color. Only Anna knows where it begins. For several seconds, no one spoke. The old photograph trembled slightly in Thomas Keller's hand as the beam from a flashlight crossed its faded surface. Anna couldn't take her eyes off it. She remembered the day it had been taken. She had been 21. Lauren was barely 12. Her mother had insisted everyone stand in front of the barn because the maple trees behind it had turned bright red. Her father had laughed because Daniel, still only her fiancé at the time, had accidentally stepped into fresh mud moments before the picture. It had always been one of Anna's favorite family photographs. She had no idea there was anything written on the back. Daniel frowned. Where did you get that? Keller smiled. Your father kept it hidden inside an old ledger. My people found it while searching his office months ago. Anna's stomach tightened. My people. So this wasn't about the land. Keller slowly folded the photograph. The land was simply a bonus. Daniel stepped another step forward. What are you really looking for? Keller looked directly at Anna. I'm looking for something your grandfather disappeared with in 1978. Anna blinked. My grandfather? Samuel Mitchell. She shook her head. My grandfather was a farmer. Keller gave a quiet laugh. That's what everyone believed. He was also one of the largest private land surveyors in southern Indiana. He purchased property long before developers realized how valuable it would become. Anna frowned. I don't understand. You don't have to. Keller tucked the photograph back into his pocket. You only have to remember where your grandfather used to take you. Daniel immediately sensed something wasn't right. Anna. She didn't answer. Because suddenly, a memory surfaced. She couldn't have been older than 8. Every Saturday morning, her grandfather would take her walking across the property. Not Lauren. Only Anna. They always stopped near the old barn. Then he would smile and ask the same strange question. If one day everyone forgets, will you remember where the first stone sleeps? As a child, she thought it was part of a game. She always laughed. He would laugh too. Then they'd continue walking. Anna whispered almost without realizing it. The first stone. Daniel turned toward her. What? She looked past everyone. Toward the far corner of the barn. Near the oldest support beam. There had always been a large flat limestone rock buried halfway into the ground. Her grandfather never allowed anyone to move it. Not even when the barn was renovated years earlier. He always said, some foundations should never be disturbed. Keller noticed the change in her expression. A slow smile spread across his face. You remember? Anna immediately shook her head. No. But it was too late. He had already seen the truth in her eyes. There. He pointed toward the corner. Start digging. The 2 men rushed toward the massive limestone slab. Daniel stepped directly in front of them. No one's touching that stone. One of the men shoved him backward. Daniel stumbled but kept his balance. Anna's heart pounded. Everything was happening too fast. Lauren suddenly screamed. Stop. Nobody listened. The men wedged heavy pry bars beneath the edge of the stone. Wood cracked. Metal scraped against rock. Slowly, the limestone began to rise. Anna felt something deep inside her chest tighten. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. Not until the right time. The stone shifted. A cloud of dust filled the barn. Beneath it, there wasn't a buried chest. There wasn't gold. There wasn't cash. There was an old iron hatch built directly into the concrete foundation. Everyone froze. Even Keller looked surprised. So, he whispered, it really exists. Daniel stared at Anna. You never knew? She slowly shook her head. I swear. I didn't. The hatch looked ancient. Its surface was covered with rust. An iron ring rested in the middle. No modern lock. Just a thick steel latch that hadn't been opened in decades. Keller smiled wider than ever. Open it. Neither of his men moved. One looked nervous. What if it's empty? It isn't. Keller's voice was filled with certainty. My grandfather spent 40 years searching for this place. Anna looked at him. What are you talking about? Keller slowly turned toward her. My grandfather and yours worked together. They bought land throughout Indiana. But shortly before Samuel Mitchell died, something disappeared. Daniel narrowed his eyes. What disappeared? Keller answered without hesitation. The original survey archives. Anna frowned. Survey maps. They're worth millions. Everyone looked at him. He continued. Those records identify mineral rights, water access, undiscovered easements, oil lease boundaries, thousands of acres whose ownership could still be challenged today. Daniel finally understood. This was never about Harold's farmhouse. Keller smiled. No, it was about what might be hidden underneath it. Anna suddenly remembered another story. As children, whenever storms knocked out the electricity, her grandfather used to tell them, the real inheritance of this family isn't something you can spend. She had always assumed he meant values, honor, hard work. Now, she wasn't so sure. Keller grabbed the iron ring. He pulled. Nothing. The hatch didn't move. He nodded toward one of the men. Help me. Together they strained with all their strength. The ancient metal groaned. Then, with a deafening crack, the hatch swung open. A rush of cold air escaped from below. The beam from Keller's flashlight disappeared into darkness. Stone steps, leading underground. Nobody moved. The silence felt almost sacred. Then, from somewhere deep beneath the farmhouse, there came a faint metallic sound, almost like a door slowly closing by itself. Lauren took one terrified step backward. Did you hear that? Daniel immediately raised one hand. No one goes down there. But Keller was already smiling. After 50 years. We've finally found it. And before anyone could stop him, he stepped onto the first stone stair leading into the darkness. Wait. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing the back of Thomas Keller's jacket just as he reached the third step. The businessman spun around angrily. Take your hands off me. I'm preventing you from destroying evidence. Keller smiled. Evidence? You mean history? With one sharp movement, he pulled free and continued down the narrow stone staircase. The two men working for him exchanged nervous glances before reluctantly following. Within seconds, their flashlights disappeared into the darkness below. Anna stared at the open passage. Cold air drifted upward, carrying the scent of damp stone, old wood, and earth untouched for decades. Lauren whispered, I never knew this existed. Neither did Anna. Daniel pulled out his phone. No signal. He looked toward the barn doors. We're too far underground for reception. He turned to both sisters. You stay here. Anna immediately shook her head. No. Anna. We're done with secrets. Daniel knew arguing would only waste time. He grabbed the large work flashlight hanging near the barn entrance. It still worked. The bright beam illuminated the ancient stairway. Stay close. The four of them slowly descended. Every wooden step creaked beneath their weight. The temperature dropped noticeably. After nearly 30 steps, the staircase ended. Anna stopped in disbelief. An enormous underground room stretched before them. The walls were built from hand-cut limestone blocks. Massive wooden support beams held up the ceiling. Old lantern hooks still hung from the rafters. It looked less like a cellar, and more like a forgotten underground workshop. Keller slowly turned in a circle. Incredible. One of his men swept a flashlight across the room. There were shelves, cabinets, large wooden crates. Dust covered everything. Daniel examined the floor. No footprints. This place hasn't been opened in years. Anna walked toward one wall. Dozens of rolled maps rested inside handmade wooden tubes. Beside them, leather-bound journals, boxes filled with surveying tools, brass compasses, old measuring chains. Her grandfather's handwriting appeared on neatly labeled tags. Everything had been carefully organized, almost lovingly preserved. Lauren looked around in amazement. This was Grandpa's office. Anna nodded slowly. He built it himself. Daniel carefully opened one journal. The pages contained handwritten property surveys dating back to the 1950s. Every field, every creek, every boundary, everything was documented with incredible precision. Keller smiled. I told you. The archives. He reached toward the shelf. Daniel immediately blocked him. Don't touch anything. You don't own this. I don't need to. Keller calmly pulled another folded document from his briefcase. I've already sold access. Anna frowned. What does that mean? Keller looked almost amused. There are companies willing to pay extraordinary amounts for historical land records, especially records involving disputed mineral rights. Daniel's expression darkened. So this was never about your family. My family started this search. Keller replied. I'm simply finishing it. Anna noticed something else. At the far end of the underground room stood an enormous steel cabinet. Unlike everything else, it looked almost new. Installed decades after the room had been built. Daniel saw it too. That's odd. He walked toward it. A heavy combination lock secured the doors. Above it, a small brass plaque. Harold Mitchell. 1989. Anna whispered. Dad put that here. Lauren slowly approached. I've never seen it. Daniel examined the lock. No signs of forced entry. So Harold came down here. Recently. Anna's heart skipped. He never abandoned this place. Before anyone could speak again, one of Keller's men called out. Boss. You need to see this. Everyone turned. The man stood beside a large oak desk, hidden beneath years of dust. He pointed toward its surface. Someone had written a message there. Not with ink. With a finger through the dust. The handwriting looked fresh. Only a few days old. Daniel stepped closer. He read it aloud. If you're reading this, you're too late. Silence filled the underground chamber. Keller frowned. What kind of game is this? Daniel looked around carefully. No. This wasn't written for us. Anna stared at the words. Her father. It had to be him. He'd been here recently. Weak. Recovering. Yet somehow, he'd managed to come down into this hidden room. Why? Then Lauren noticed another detail. There. She pointed beneath the desk. A small digital security camera. Modern. Its tiny red light was still blinking. Daniel knelt beside it. It has external power. It hasn't stopped recording. Keller's eyes widened. Someone had been watching this room. For days. Maybe weeks. Daniel carefully removed the memory card. Before he could examine it, a loud metallic bang echoed through the underground chamber. Everyone jumped. The sound had come from above. The hatch. Someone had slammed it shut. The room fell completely silent. Daniel immediately rushed toward the staircase. He climbed several steps. Then stopped. He pushed upward. Nothing. The hatch wouldn't move. It won't open. Anna felt panic rising. What happened? Daniel pushed again with all his strength. The heavy iron door didn't move an inch. It was locked. He looked down at them. From the outside. Lauren's face turned white. But the deputies were supposed to be coming. Another sound echoed through the stone chamber. Footsteps. Not above them. Behind them. Slow. Measured. Coming from a dark passage none of them had noticed before. Daniel slowly turned his flashlight toward the tunnel. The beam revealed only darkness. Then, an elderly man's voice echoed through the chamber. Calm. Steady. And unmistakably familiar. You're standing exactly where I hoped you'd finally learn the truth. Anna's heart stopped. It sounded exactly like her father. Nobody moved. The underground chamber fell so silent that Anna could hear the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. The voice had been unmistakable. Harold Mitchell. Her father. Yet that was impossible. Daniel had personally taken him to another medical facility, nearly 2 hours away. He couldn't be here. Daniel slowly raised the flashlight toward the narrow stone tunnel. Who's there? No answer. Only the soft hum of electricity somewhere deeper underground. Anna frowned. Did you hear that? Daniel nodded. This place has power. But how? The farmhouse had been built nearly 80 years earlier. This hidden room looked much older than that. Yet somewhere beyond the darkness, something electrical was running. Keller stepped forward impatiently. It's probably an old generator. He started toward the tunnel. Daniel grabbed his arm. No. We don't know what's down there. Keller pulled away. I've spent 20 years looking for this place. I'm not turning back because someone played a recording. Recording. Anna looked again toward the darkness. Could it have been? Her father had always loved old technology. Cassette players. Reel-to-reel tape machines. Even after everyone else switched to smartphones. He refused to throw away anything that still worked. Daniel slowly walked toward the tunnel entrance. The narrow passage was carved directly into solid limestone. It sloped gently downward. Unlike the staircase, this corridor wasn't built for comfort. It looked almost secret. Hidden. As though only one person had ever been meant to use it. Anna followed closely behind. Lauren hesitated before joining them. Keller and his 2 men brought up the rear. The tunnel stretched nearly 50 feet before opening into another room. This one was much smaller. Cleaner. More modern. Shelves lined the walls. Boxes were neatly labeled. Old family albums. Tax records. Military documents. Newspapers dating back decades. In one corner stood a wooden desk. On top of it, an old cassette recorder. Its reels were still turning. The tape had nearly reached its end. The speaker crackled again. Harold's voice filled the room. If you've made it this far, then you've already discovered the archive. Anna slowly approached the recorder. Her hands trembled. Her father had recorded this. For them. Please, she whispered. Keep talking. The tape continued. I don't know who will hear this first. Maybe Anna. Maybe Daniel. Maybe someone who never should have found this room. Keller's eyes narrowed. So he knew. Daniel nodded. He expected someone to come. The recording continued. If you're Thomas Keller. The businessman froze. Then you've spent far too much of your life chasing the wrong inheritance. Everyone turned toward Keller. His confident smile disappeared. Harold's calm voice echoed through the room. Your grandfather believed my father stole something from him. He was wrong. They made the decision together. Keller's face tightened. No. The tape ignored him. The survey archives were never hidden for money. They were hidden because both families discovered something that powerful people wanted buried. Daniel exchanged a confused look with Anna. Powerful people? Harold continued. In 1978, several developers attempted to acquire thousands of acres across southern Indiana. They planned to redirect protected groundwater beneath 3 counties. Anna frowned. Groundwater? The official surveys disappeared. So did the development plans. Without those records, the project died. Daniel suddenly understood. The archives weren't valuable because of mineral rights. Anna nodded slowly. They contained proof. Proof of something much bigger than anyone had imagined. Keller shook his head violently. That's impossible. My grandfather said Samuel Mitchell betrayed him. Harold's recorded voice answered as if he'd anticipated the objection. Arthur Keller wasn't betrayed. He volunteered. He knew destroying those records would cost both families a fortune. But it would protect thousands of farming families. Silence. Keller looked genuinely shaken. Everything he'd believed since childhood, everything that had driven his obsession, had just collapsed. The recording continued. If Thomas is hearing this, I hope he finally understands. No one stole his family's future. They sacrificed it. Anna saw Keller's breathing change. His shoulders slowly lowered. For the first time, he looked less like a ruthless businessman, and more like a confused grandson. Then Harold's voice became softer. Anna. She stepped closer to the recorder. I'm here, Dad. It wasn't Liv. But saying the words somehow felt necessary. If you're listening, I need you to forgive Lauren. Anna closed her eyes. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She made terrible choices. But they were born from fear. Not hatred. Lauren quietly covered her face. Harold continued. And Daniel. Daniel looked down. You've protected this family better than I ever deserved. I called you my son many times. I should have said it to your face more often. Daniel swallowed hard. Anna reached for his hand. This time, he held hers tightly. The tape reached its final minutes. There is one last thing. If you're standing in this room, turn around. Everyone instinctively looked behind them. Mounted high on the stone wall, almost invisible beneath decades of dust, hung a large framed landscape painting. An ordinary painting, or so it seemed. Daniel stepped closer. The frame looked unusually thick. He carefully lifted it from the wall. Behind it was a small steel safe. Nobody spoke. The cassette recorder clicked softly as the tape reached its end. Then Harold's final words echoed through the room. The combination is the day your mother convinced me that love was worth risking everything. Click. Silence. Every eye turned toward Anna, because only one person in the room knew exactly what date Harold was talking about. And with trembling hands, she stepped toward the safe. Anna stood motionless in front of the steel safe. The room around her seemed to disappear. All she could hear was the sound of her own breathing. The day your mother convinced me that love was worth risking everything. She whispered the words to herself. Daniel didn't interrupt. Neither did Lauren. Even Thomas Keller remained silent. The answer wasn't hidden in a calendar. It lived inside Anna's memories. She closed her eyes. Her parents had celebrated 2 dates every year. Their wedding anniversary. And another one. A date no one outside the family had ever understood. Every spring, her father would bring home a bouquet of yellow tulips. Her mother would smile and say, "You remembered." Her father always answered the same way. "How could I ever forget the day you changed my life?" Anna suddenly opened her eyes. April 18th. Daniel looked at her. "You're sure?" She nodded slowly. They met months before they married. April 18th was their first date. It was the day Mom agreed to go fishing with Dad. Lauren smiled weakly through her tears. "I remember the tulips." Anna carefully turned the combination dial. For nothing happened. Her heart sank. No. She took a slow breath. Her father had always done things differently. Not simple. Meaningful. Then another memory surfaced. When Anna was 10 years old, she had asked why her parents never celebrated Valentine's Day. Her father laughed. Why celebrate the day everyone else chooses? Our story started on April 18, 1968. Anna quickly turned back to the lock. Here. For, 8. The final number clicked into place. For one long second, nothing happened. Then, click. The heavy locking bolts released. Nobody moved. Anna slowly wrapped her fingers around the handle. She looked toward Daniel. You should open it with me. He smiled gently. This belongs to your family. She shook her head. You are my family. Daniel quietly stepped beside her. Together, they pulled the safe door open. It wasn't filled with cash. It wasn't filled with gold. Instead, inside rested 3 carefully organized shelves. The top shelf contained dozens of handwritten journals, each labeled by year. 1964, 1965, 1966. Every year of Harold Mitchell's adult life. The middle shelf held neatly stacked folders tied with faded blue ribbons. Family photographs, letters, birth certificates, military records. Everything preserved with extraordinary care. The bottom shelf contained only one object. A weathered cedar box. No lock. No label. Just smooth wood polished by time. Anna carefully lifted it onto the table. She hesitated before opening it. Inside lay hundreds of envelopes. Every single one addressed in Harold's handwriting. Some carried Anna's name. Others Lauren's. Several were addressed to Daniel. There were even envelopes marked. For my first grandchild. For Christmas after I'm gone. If you ever stop speaking to each other. Lauren began crying again. He wrote all these? Anna nodded silently. Her father had spent years preparing conversations he knew he might never have. Daniel carefully picked up one envelope. Across the front it read, For Daniel, when you finally become the man I always knew you were. Daniel looked embarrassed. I shouldn't. Anna smiled softly. He wanted you to. Daniel opened it. Inside was only a single sheet of paper. He unfolded it slowly. As he read, his eyes filled with tears. Anna had seen her husband cry only twice before. Once when his mother died. Once on the day their daughter had been born. Now, a third time. What does it say? She asked quietly. Daniel took a deep breath. He says. His voice cracked. He says thank you. For loving his daughters when he couldn't always understand them himself. Nobody spoke. Daniel continued reading. He says. That real strength isn't protecting people from pain. It's helping them find each other again afterward. Anna squeezed his hand. Lauren quietly wiped away another tear. She looked around the underground room. So, this was the real inheritance. Anna nodded. It was never about land. Or money. It was always about us. Thomas Keller stood several feet away. He hadn't touched a single document. His shoulders seemed smaller now. Defeated. I spent 20 years. He whispered. Destroying my own life. No one answered. He slowly removed the old photograph from his pocket. Looked at it one final time. Then gently placed it beside the cedar box. My grandfather never told me this part. Daniel looked at him. Maybe because he blamed himself. Keller nodded. Maybe. He sighed deeply. My grandfather always said Samuel Mitchell ruined everything. He looked around the hidden room. But now I realize. They were trying to save something. Anna carefully closed the cedar box. My father wanted these memories protected. Not sold. Keller slowly nodded. I understand that now. For the first time since Anna had met him, there wasn't a trace of greed left in his voice. Only regret. Suddenly, a loud metallic crash echoed from above. Everyone looked toward the staircase. Then came another sound. Car doors. Several of them. Followed by shouted commands. Sheriff's Department. If anyone is inside the barn, identify yourselves. Daniel smiled for the first time all night. They made it. Relief washed across the room. The nightmare was finally ending. Or so they thought. Then one of Keller's employees came running down the staircase, completely out of breath. Mr. Keller. Everyone turned. The man's face was pale. They're towing every vehicle outside. So? Keller asked. The employee swallowed hard. They're also asking for. He looked directly at Anna. Harold Mitchell. Anna frowned. My father isn't here. The man shook his head. I know. But according to the deputies, Harold Mitchell checked himself out of the rehabilitation center less than an hour ago. And no one knows where he is. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Anna stared at the deputy standing at the entrance to the underground room. I'm sorry, she said slowly. Could you repeat that? The deputy removed his campaign hat. Mr. Mitchell isn't at the rehabilitation center anymore. Daniel's face tightened. That's impossible. I transferred him personally. So did we, the deputy replied. But about an hour ago, he signed himself out. Daniel immediately shook his head. He couldn't. He was still too weak to travel alone. That's what the doctors told us. Anna felt a knot form in her stomach. Did someone pick him up? The deputy nodded. According to security footage. He left by himself. Daniel frowned. That doesn't make any sense. The deputy hesitated. There is something else. He left behind a handwritten note. Anna's heartbeat quickened. A note. The deputy carefully removed a folded envelope from an evidence bag. Addressed to all of you. Anna immediately recognized the handwriting. Her father's. She carefully unfolded the paper. My dear family, if you're reading this, then you finally found the room beneath the barn. Good. That means you've already learned the truth I spent too many years hiding. Now it's my turn to do one thing on my own. Anna's hands trembled. She continued. Please don't look for me immediately. I need one final day to make peace with something I've carried for almost 50 years. Daniel exchanged a worried glance with the deputy. One final day? Anna kept reading. Don't worry. I'm not running away. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm simply finishing a promise I made to your mother. Lauren quietly covered her mouth. Their mother. Even after 12 years. Everything somehow still came back to her. Anna continued. There is one place I must visit alone. One conversation I have delayed for far too long. After that, I'll come home. Home. Not the farmhouse. Home. Anna smiled through her tears. For the first time in months, her father still believed home included both of his daughters. The letter continued. Daniel, thank you for refusing to give up on an old man who often made it difficult to love him. You reminded me that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who stays when leaving would be easier. Daniel quietly looked away. Anna squeezed his shoulder. Then she continued reading. Lauren, you don't owe me perfection. You owe yourself honesty. Start there. The rest can still be repaired. Lauren broke down completely. I don't deserve him. She whispered. Daniel gently answered. None of us get to decide whether we deserve forgiveness. Anna looked back at the letter. Only one paragraph remained. Anna, stop carrying everyone else's burdens. You've spent your entire life believing it's your job to fix broken people. Sometimes the greatest act of love is allowing someone to rebuild themselves. You tried to save everyone. Now let them walk beside you instead. Anna slowly lowered the letter. She couldn't speak, because her father was right. For decades, she had quietly solved everyone's problems, paid everyone's debts, protected everyone's feelings. She had mistaken responsibility for love. Daniel stepped closer. He knew you better than anyone. Anna nodded silently. The deputy cleared his throat. There was something else in the envelope. He handed Daniel a small folded map. It wasn't a road map. It was a sketch. Simple. Drawn by hand. At the bottom Harold had written, Sunrise, Eagle Bluff. Anna stared at it. Then suddenly smiled. I know exactly where he is. Lauren looked confused. Eagle Bluff. Anna nodded. It's on the southern edge of Lake Monroe. Dad proposed to Mom there. Daniel looked at the drawing. And today's date. He checked his watch. July 19th. Anna's eyes widened. Oh my God. Lauren looked at her. What? Today would have been their 48th wedding anniversary. Silence. Daniel folded the map. We're going. The deputy nodded. I'll notify the sheriff. No, Anna replied gently. This isn't a police matter anymore. The deputy studied her for a moment, then smiled. I think you're right. 35 minutes later, the three of them stood at the top of Eagle Bluff. The first light of dawn was beginning to color the eastern sky. Mist floated across the calm surface of Lake Monroe. The overlook looked exactly as Anna remembered. A weathered wooden bench. A small stone memorial dedicated to local veterans. Wildflowers growing between the rocks. And someone sitting quietly on the bench. Harold Mitchell. Wrapped in a brown jacket. A fishing rod rested beside him. He wasn't fishing. He was simply watching the sunrise. Anna stopped walking. For several seconds, she simply looked at her father. He seemed smaller than she remembered. Older. More fragile. Yet somehow, Harold slowly turned his head. He smiled. The same warm smile Anna hadn't seen in almost a year. I was wondering how long it would take you. Anna laughed softly through her tears. You left us a map. I figured Daniel would solve it. Daniel smiled. I had help. Harold slowly stood. His movements were careful but steadier than before. He looked first at Anna, then at Lauren. Finally, He opened both arms. Neither daughter hesitated. They crossed the distance together. And for the first time in many months, the Mitchell family embraced as one. None of them noticed the rising sun behind them. None of them cared. But sometime, the brightest new beginning arrives only after the longest night finally comes to an end. The morning sun climbed slowly above the trees, bathing Eagle Bluff in warm golden light. For a long time, no one said a word. Harold simply held both of his daughters. One arm around Anna, the other around Lauren. It wasn't a perfect embrace. Too many painful memories still stood between them. But it was a beginning. Sometimes, a beginning is enough. Eventually Harold stepped back and smiled. I've waited a long time for this. Anna looked at him through tear-filled eyes. You could have called. Harold chuckled softly. I know. I almost did. 12 times. He lowered himself carefully onto the old wooden bench. I just didn't know how to explain how wrong I'd been. Anna sat beside him. You didn't have to explain. You only had to let me in. Harold nodded. I know that now. Daniel stood quietly a few feet away, giving them space. Lauren remained standing, staring out over the lake. She looked unsure whether she even deserved to stay. Harold noticed immediately. Lauren. She slowly turned. I wasn't sure you wanted me here. Harold smiled. If I didn't, I wouldn't have left a map. Those simple words shattered the last wall she had been holding together. She slowly walked toward him. I'm so sorry, Dad. I know. I lied to you. I know. I betrayed Anna. I know. I almost lost everything. Harold reached for her hand. But you didn't. You stopped. You told the truth. That matters. Lauren broke into tears again. I don't know how to fix any of this. Harold gently squeezed her hand. You don't fix 30 years in one morning. You fix today. Then tomorrow. And then the day after that. Daniel smiled quietly. That sounded exactly like Harold. Simple. Honest. Practical. Anna looked toward the fishing rod resting beside the bench. You brought Grandpa's old rod. Harold laughed. It still catches fish better than the expensive ones. Daniel finally joined them. I thought you came here to be alone. Harold nodded. I did. Then why leave us the map? Harold looked across the calm water. Because I realized something while sitting here. What? I've spent too much of my life trying to protect people by keeping things from them. He smiled sadly. It never worked. Everyone laughed softly. Because it was true. Secrets had nearly destroyed all of them. Harold looked at Daniel. I owe you more apologies than anyone. Daniel immediately shook his head. No. You don't. I accused you of wanting my farm. Harold continued. I questioned your motives. I doubted your character. Daniel smiled gently. You were scared. Harold nodded. Still. He slowly stood. Despite the stiffness in his legs, he faced Daniel squarely. Then, to everyone's surprise, he extended his hand. I've called you my son for years. But I don't think I ever earned the right. Daniel looked at the weathered hand. Instead of shaking it, he stepped forward and hugged Harold tightly. You already had that right. Harold quietly closed his eyes. Thank you. After a few moments they stepped apart. Anna couldn't remember the last time she'd seen either man look so relieved. The weight both had carried for months, perhaps even years, finally seemed lighter. A gentle breeze drifted across the overlook. Harold reached into his jacket pocket. I almost forgot. He pulled out a small brass key. Old. Worn smooth by decades of use. Anna recognized it immediately. The desk in Grandpa's workshop. Harold nodded. I never opened the last drawer. You never did? No. I promised my father I wouldn't. Lauren frowned. Then why give us the key now? Harold smiled. Because whatever's inside belongs to the future now. Daniel looked curious. You don't know what's in it? Harold laughed. I've wondered for 40 years. But a promise is a promise. It felt surprisingly heavy. Not because of its weight. Because of what it represented. Trust. Harold looked at both daughters. I want the two of you to open it together. Lauren looked shocked. Together? Yes. If either one of you opens it alone, you've both missed the point. Anna smiled. I think I understand. Harold nodded. I knew you would. Just then, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed through the trees. 2 sheriff's SUVs rolled slowly into the parking area. Deputy Collins stepped out. He smiled when he saw the entire family together. I hope we're not interrupting. Harold chuckled. Only about 30 years of unfinished conversation. The deputy laughed. I'll keep this brief. He walked over holding a folder. Thomas Keller asked me to give this to you. Anna looked surprised. To me. To your whole family. She opened the folder. Inside was a signed legal statement. Thomas Keller had voluntarily withdrawn every claim connected to the Mitchell property. He had also attached a personal handwritten note. Anna read it aloud. I spent most of my life chasing an inheritance that never belonged to me. Your family reminded me that the things worth protecting cannot be bought, sold, or inherited. They can only be honored. I hope one day my own family remembers that too. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, Harold smiled. I think Arthur Keller would be proud of his grandson after all. The deputy closed the folder. There's one last piece of good news. Daniel looked up. The district attorney reviewed everything this morning. And because Harold refused to pursue criminal charges, and because Keller has agreed to cooperate fully with investigators regarding the fraudulent investment scheme, the focus will now be on recovering money for every victim. Lauren slowly looked up. You mean? The deputy nodded. There's a chance many families may actually get their savings back. Lauren covered her face once more. Not with shame this time. With relief. For the first time in years, hope no longer felt impossible. Harold looked toward the rising sun, then quietly said, I think your mother would finally be smiling again. The four of them stood together in silence, watching the light spread across the lake. None of them realized. The greatest inheritance Harold Mitchell had protected was never hidden beneath the barn. It had been waiting inside their hearts all along. 6 months later, autumn arrived gently in southern Indiana. The maple trees surrounding the old Mitchell farmhouse had turned brilliant shades of crimson, gold, and orange. A cool breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves across the fields. For the first time in a very long while, the farmhouse didn't feel lonely. Laughter drifted from the kitchen. Coffee brewed on the stove. Someone was humming an old country song. Life had returned. Anna stood on the front porch with a mug of coffee warming her hands. She watched Daniel repairing a section of the white fence Harold insisted didn't really need fixing. Daniel always smiled whenever Harold said that, because 5 minutes later, Harold would quietly hand him another board. Some habits never changed. Anna smiled. Not because everything was perfect. Because it wasn't. Healing rarely is. Lauren stepped onto the porch carrying a basket of fresh apples. She looked different now. Not because of new clothes or makeup. She simply carried herself differently. Lighter. Calmer. More honest. She sat beside Anna. I've been thinking. Anna laughed softly. Should I be worried? Lauren smiled. No. I wanted to thank you. You already have. Not for forgiving me. She looked toward the fields. For giving me the chance to earn forgiveness. Anna reached over and gently squeezed her sister's hand. You've done that yourself. Over the previous 6 months, Lauren had sold her condominium voluntarily. Every dollar she recovered went toward repaying the victims of the fraudulent investment scheme. She accepted responsibility publicly, worked with investigators, found a modest job at a local community center, helping small business owners avoid the same financial mistakes she'd made. She no longer chased success. She chased peace. Oddly enough, she had finally begun finding both. The front door opened. Harold stepped outside carrying the old cedar box from the underground safe. His movements were still slower than before the stroke. But every week, he grew stronger. Physical therapy had become part of his routine. Daniel joked that Harold treated exercise like military training. Harold insisted he was simply too stubborn to quit. Neither man admitted they enjoyed competing over who could walk farther each morning. Harold sat beside his daughters. I think today's the day. Anna looked at the cedar box. So do I. 6 months earlier, Harold had asked them not to open the final drawer in Samuel Mitchell's desk until the family had truly found its way back to one another. Today, finally felt right. Together, the four of them walked toward the old barn. The sheriff's investigation had long since ended. The underground archive had been carefully documented and preserved with help from the Indiana Historical Society. Historians discovered that Samuel Mitchell and Arthur Keller had quietly protected thousands of acres of wetlands by refusing to release confidential survey records that powerful developers intended to misuse decades earlier. Their sacrifice had preserved farmland, drinking water, and forests that still existed today. Neither family had become wealthy. Instead, they had left behind something far more valuable. A legacy of integrity. Inside the hidden workshop, everything remained exactly as Harold remembered. The journals, the maps, the wooden shelves, and Samuel Mitchell's old oak desk. Anna removed the small brass key from her pocket. She looked at Lauren. You ready? Lauren nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. Together, they inserted the key. The lock turned effortlessly. The final drawer slid open. Inside, there wasn't another mystery. No treasure. No secret fortune. Only a single envelope. Across the front, in Samuel Mitchell's careful handwriting, were 7 simple words. To my family, if love wins, open this. Anna smiled through tears. I think we've earned this. Harold quietly nodded. She unfolded the letter. The paper had yellowed with age. Yet every word remained perfectly clear. My dear family, if this letter is being opened, then something wonderful has happened. It means you chose each other over pride. Nothing I leave behind matters more than that. People spend their lives believing inheritance means land, money, or possessions. They're wrong. The only inheritance worth protecting is the kind of family people become after they've survived disappointment together. Money disappears. Buildings fall. Land changes owners. Kindness, forgiveness, loyalty. Those grow stronger each time they're shared. If you're standing here together, then you've already received everything I ever hoped to give you. Go upstairs. Open the barn doors. Look at the fields. Remember that every sunrise offers people another chance to choose love over fear. Then go home. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. Daniel quietly folded the letter and handed it back to Anna. Together, they climbed the old wooden stairs. Daniel pushed open the heavy barn doors. Warm autumn sunlight flooded inside. The field stretched endlessly toward the horizon. Golden corn swayed gently in the wind. The maple trees glowed like fire beneath the afternoon sun. Harold stood between his daughters. He took one hand in each of his own. You know, he said softly, when your mother was dying, she asked me one question. Anna looked at him. What was it? Harold smiled through tears. She asked, promise me that one day they'll laugh together again. Lauren began crying. Anna leaned her head against her father's shoulder. Daniel quietly wrapped an arm around all 3 of them. For a long while, no one moved. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt complete. Some stories end with revenge. Some end with justice. But the stories people remember for the rest of their lives often end with forgiveness. Because forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It simply refuses to let the past decide the future. As the afternoon sun bathed the Mitchell farmhouse in warm golden light, 4 people stood together at the barn doors. No longer divided by secrets. No longer imprisoned by regret. Only grateful that they had found each other before it was too late. And perhaps that is the greatest inheritance anyone could ever leave behind.